If you're like a lot of other people these days in 2026 that have been online researching the best neighborhoods in Denver, searching places like YouTube, Google, or maybe even on ChatGPT, well, I got something to tell you. The same places come up over and over and over again, and a lot of these, they end up actually not being the best places that locals choose to live in. So in this video today, myself as a 42-year Colorado and Denver native, I'm going to share with you guys the actual places that people want to live in 2026, not just because of headlines or flashy marketing, actual places that locals choose because of things like walkability, price points, maybe even school districts or access to the mountains. All the stuff that truly matters once you decide to move to Colorado and start getting into all the best aspects of life here in the Mile High City. So this is sounding interesting to you guys. Make sure you stick around because at the end, I'm actually going to be doing a comparison of all of these different neighborhoods and sharing with you guys which ones really do rank at the top of the list. I'm excited to share this with you guys, a brand new episode of Living in Denver. Let's go. All right, so before we just jump right into this first area that's actually one of my personal favorites, I used to live in this area. Just really quick, if you have any questions when going through this video today, all my info down below, feel free to reach out. I love connecting and just helping in any way that I can. But enough about that, let's go ahead and get started. The first of these 6 areas that I'm gonna be sharing with you guys is going to be Sloan Lake and also West Highland. So I actually used to live in the Sloan Lake neighborhood. I was in a really cool little pocket of homes called East Bay. It's right basically dead smack in the middle of where the Sloan Lake is and also where the Broncos' current stadium is, known as Empower Field. So literally right between the two was this East Bay community that I spent about 4 years. And I loved this part of Denver. And that's why I wanted to just kick it off with number 1 and share with you guys this one first. This is an area that a lot of people decide to at least have on their list when they're searching for homes. And a couple things that I'm gonna share with you guys, I'm gonna get into that in a second. But before I do, I just wanna make one little quick note here. With Sloan Lake and West Highland, these are areas that I've seen change so much over the last decade, maybe even 15 years. So I went to school at Wheat Ridge, which is a little bit west of where West Highlands and Sloan Lake is. It's only about a 10 to 15 minute drive from where I grew up as a child in the Wheat Ridge neighborhood, a little bit further west. And I've seen this area completely transform since I was a kid. And we're talking all kinds of improvements, changes of just the type of homes and demographics and the type of neighborhoods that are being redeveloped. You know, these old 1900s bungalows that have existed literally for over 100 years in a lot of cases. A lot of these have kind of slowly transitioned into a lot more modern style homes. Now, the one thing about this part of Sloan Lake and West Highland is because of the incredible popularity for so long, it really was, I think, overinflated and became out of reach for so many people that were considering moving here or people that already did and just chose this as the place they wanted to kind of plant their feet and be located in. So we're gonna talk again about a lot more in depth on all 6 of these neighborhoods, but the way I'm gonna do this video is I'm actually gonna break it down where I'm gonna share the same consistent 6 pieces of information on all of these different areas. That way we can really, at the end of the video, conclude it with comparing them side by side and giving you the opportunity to really make an informed and correct decision, at least to narrow it down a little bit more when you do decide to hopefully come out and start looking at different areas around Denver, Colorado. All right, so first of these 6 categories about Sloan Lake and West Highlands is gonna be the location. So looking at it on a map, you can see that Sloan Lake is barely to the west of downtown Denver. In fact, a lot of people that live in this part of Sloan Lake and West Highlands can even walk or ride their bike to commute to work if they are working downtown. So great walkability when it comes to access to downtown Denver, as well as access to all the great shops and restaurants and just a ton of local community type businesses in this entire surrounding area. It's also just a little bit to the east of Wheat Ridge, which, as I said, is where I spent a lot of my childhood growing up. I really like this location because you also have immediate direct access to 2 of the biggest highways in the entire city and state, which is going to be I-70, which you can hop right on from this area and get straight out to the western slope and up to the mountains. In fact, you even have a little bit of a jump start compared to a lot of other parts of town. And then you also have I-25, which is just running directly parallel with Sloan Lake and West Highlands, and literally one of the best easy accesses to the highway if you are needing to commute either up north, maybe to places like Thornton or Northglenn or Westminster, or maybe you need to hop on I-25 and head down south to places like Littleton or maybe even further south like Colorado Springs. Now, when it comes to home styles, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, there's a lot of old historic homes in this part of Denver. Lots of those 1900 bungalows, lots of mid-century modern homes as well. Now, today, we still have a lot of that, but we also see so many of these homes that have been dramatically improved, renovated from top to bottom, in some cases even scraped. And one little side note, one thing that's interesting is that in this part of Denver, a lot of the homes had an old grandfathered in zoning where instead of what they call R1, meaning there's one residential property allowed on that land, a lot of these are actually R2. So what happened about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when this area really started to blow up, what happened was a lot of really savvy investors realized this, and they would find dilapidated old single-family homes, some of these bungalows that were just past the point of being able to really be improved. And what they would do is they'd scrape it and then actually rezone it where there would be two homes on this property. This could either be like a duplex, or in a lot of cases, you'll see these townhomes. Townhomes are a higher end version where basically you have that party wall, one shared wall between the two units, but much nicer. You know, a lot of these duplexes, a lot of these townhomes in Sloan Lake and West Highland are selling for well over $1 million. I've even seen some that are closer to $2 million just for that one part of the home, just that one side. So as you can imagine, very, very high price points in this area, but also a lot of others that are still, you know, a little bit more of the mid-range price points for Denver currently here in 2026. Now, when it comes to lifestyle and amenities, which is our third point about Sloan Lake and Highlands, what I love about this is it's probably the best walkability of any of the 6 areas I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. When I lived over there, I loved it because I could literally walk out my front door and hit the Sloan Lake Park, take a lap around the lake with my dog Charlie, and literally don't have to ever get in your car, don't have to waste time, which is so valuable these days, to maybe drive for 20 minutes to Cherry Creek Reservoir or maybe Chatfield, where you have these other great parks, but requires a little bit of commitment and time just to get there. When you live in areas like Sloan Lake and Highlands, what I love is you're able to just immediately walk out your door and access these great parts of town. Some of the best in the entire state, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to why locals like myself love this specific area, there's a few reasons, but definitely without a doubt, number one is just, again, going to be the walkability and how much is crammed into this pretty minimal sized area. I'm talking restaurants, parks, lots of great nightlife and bars, and just that immediate direct access to downtown Denver, which literally could be under 10 minutes if you got your bike handy. So really, really good location. I think that's one of the main reasons why locals continue to choose this as a place to live. And one last thing that I'll share, if you are a big sports fan, having the Broncos Stadium, at least where it currently is located, there is going to be a change of location here in about 5 years, in about 2030. But right now, what I love is how you have literally within a 5-minute walk, one of the best stadiums in the state, and tons of great, not only Broncos games, but also concerts and lots of other activities and events that happen at the stadium. So having that within walking distance, it's pretty hard to beat. Now let's just shift gears and talk about the 2026, what I think are some buyer insights if this is an area that's interesting you. First and foremost, this does seem to be an area that still attracts a little bit younger of a demographic. I'd say a lot of young professionals that at least have enough of a salary where they can afford a little bit higher priced home. And then the other buyer insight that I'll share is just the fact, kind of like what the zoning that I talked about earlier, because this area has become so popular, there's a lot of areas in this vicinity that have higher density zoning. So there's areas like Jefferson Park, for example, that's right next to Sloan Lake and West Highlands that have a very dense part of Denver where you'll see a lot of apartments, townhomes, but with a lot more density. And then last but not least, really quick, just sharing a little bit about a reality check. So when I put reality check into these videos, what I'm referring to is just maybe areas that are a little bit controversial or things that you really want to think through if this is an area that you're highly considering checking out. So with the reality check for Sloan Lake, first off, I want to talk about parking. Depending on what street you're located on, some of these are in very older neighborhoods. And these older neighborhoods, when they were built, they had a lot shorter, narrower roads where if you have, for example, friends parking on the street in front of your house, and a lot of other people are doing the same thing, these streets get pretty narrow, and sometimes it's even hard to get two cars to pass each other without having to have one person stop and kind of pull over to the side. There's different areas around Denver that have this worse than others. I don't think it's horrible in Sloan Lake and Highlands, but it is bad enough, or at least enough of an issue where if that's something that kind of is a little bit of a sticking point and kind of grinds your gears a little bit, I would just implore you to maybe look at certain parts of Sloan Lake and Highlands where you don't have to deal with this quite as much. Okay, so that wraps up Sloan Lake and Highland. Now let's talk about the second area that is really a must check out spot, especially if you are somebody that really likes the mountains and that western side of town with accessibility to get up there a little bit quicker than a lot of the other areas on the eastern and southern sides of Denver. So this area is going to be northwest Arvada, and Arvada is very large. So I wanted to specifically talk about northwestern Arvada because this happens to be my favorite area, and also an area that whenever I take potentially people that are moving out here on driving tours and start looking at homes, this always tends to be the area that they get drawn to as well. So there's lots of different areas in northwest Arvada, but when you look at it on a map, the areas that I'd like to share with you guys today are going to be a couple. First off, we'll talk a little bit about Layden Rock. We'll also talk a little bit about Old Town Arvada and a little bit about Stanley Lake. So those are three areas that, as you can see on the map, are fairly close to one another. But as you can also see, Arvada really does take up a large footprint. So Arvada is great. There's a lot of people that really get drawn to Arvada for different reasons, but also one that I'll share with you guys a little bit more in depth here in a minute is the fact they have a little bit more loose zoning restrictions. When you have a more loose zoning, for example, in unincorporated Jefferson County, which is part of Arvada, this allows people that work from home, or maybe people that have shops or any sort of job or something that they're doing at their house that might be a little bit of a nuisance to their neighbors. Well, in Arvada, there's different areas where you have a little bit more flexibility on this. You'll see a lot of people that even have businesses being ran out of their home, and just a little bit more of a Wild West, so to speak, where you can really do whatever you want at your property. So now that you saw where Arvada is located on the map, next I want to talk a little bit more in depth about home styles. A lot of different styles of homes when you look at Arvada, even in the northwestern part of Arvada that I specifically like. So in areas like Layden Rock, you're going to find a lot newer homes. This is a master plan community. Some pros and cons to that. One pro specifically to Layden Rock is you have some phenomenal views looking out west to the foothills, as well as even looking a little bit to the southeast, where you can see even the entire Denver city skyline from a lot of the homes in Layden Rock. Now, the one con or a negative specific to Layden Rock, it gets very, very windy. I think because of the trade-off of having some of these more expansive views, the drawback to that is if it is a windier day, you're going to feel it at your house. If I had to pick the windiest place in the Denver area, I'd probably pick Layden Rock or somewhere on this northwestern side of Arvada going up towards Boulder. So if that's something that really bugs you, I know it's kind of a thing that I just really like to avoid wind whenever possible. This might be something that's enough of a reason to maybe wait and consider the next area that I'm going to share with you guys after Arvada. Now, when it comes to lifestyle and amenities, a couple things I want to share with you guys. The first one is that Stanley Lake is awesome. If you guys haven't checked out Stanley Lake yet, one of the best walking trails around the lake. I love this part of Denver and part of Arvada. And in fact, there's a great area called Five Parks. My sister used to actually work here. I have a sister who has special needs, and there is just an amazing restaurant and bar that exists in Five Parks called Jack's Bar and Grill and Steamer's Coffee Shop. They make this amazing homemade jam and jelly that special needs adults help make, and they actually employ a ton of special needs adults. I think when my sister was there about 10 years ago, they'd have times in the day where there might be 20 or more special needs adults working there. So as you can imagine, this is a great way to bring the community together. A lot of locals really like to spend a lot of time at this coffee shop, and it's just one of these places that I think really elevates the lifestyle because of it really bringing the community together. I love this part of Stanley Lake. Check out Five Parks. Now, when it comes to why locals love this area, especially some of the things I've just been talking about, a couple others that are really consistent feedback that I get from a lot of people when I take them over here. Number one, it's going to be how a lot of the areas here are very quiet, very residential, and that community focus. You're also going to find a lot of homes with a little bit larger square footage of lot sizes. So you have a little bit more privacy in a lot of cases, and also just a little bit more room to breathe. I talked earlier about Sloan Lake and Highlands. Because it's such a desirable area, the footprint is very small for a lot of the homes, and you have a lot of that higher density housing all around. You do also have that in parts of Arvada, but I still think that there's overall a little bit more sense of peace because of the more spread out lifestyle that a lot of the homes provide. Another way to maybe phrase this to make a little bit more sense, I think that Arvada has a really good balance of that suburban, calm lifestyle, but also direct, easy access to city life and a little bit more energy and excitement. Now, when it comes to 2026 buyer insights, I think Arvada is a little bit still behind when it comes to popularity, where the cat's not out of the bag yet. A lot of great opportunities, I think, still exist in Arvada, especially compared to other areas that have become quite saturated, similar to, for example, Sloan Lake and Highlands. So with Arvada, it's a little bit earlier on in that process where people still really haven't discovered some of these little pockets that are super cool and really popular. If you fast forward another 10 years, I think Arvada is going to be one of the areas in Denver that changes the most, just because more and more people are really gravitating towards the western side of Denver, where you have that much closer, easy access to the mountains. And as more and more people also work remotely, it gives them the ability to live in places that have more outdoor activities directly outside of their doorsteps. And then last but not least, that quick reality check on Arvada, specifically northwestern Arvada. Overall, I would say there's a little bit less walkability in comparison to other parts of Denver. But if that's really important to you, you definitely can find that, especially in Old Town Arvada, which is kind of like their downtown. You've got a lot of pedestrian-only streets, tons of locally owned and operated businesses. So I just kind of wanted to push back on this one a little bit just to say, there is opportunity for that if that's important to you. All right, so with that being said, let's just jump right into the third part of Denver that I also think is a phenomenal buy today and also going into the next few years before it gains even more popularity. And this one is going to be a completely different part of Denver. So first, we were looking over at Sloan Lake and Highlands. Then we went a little bit to the north and found northwestern Arvada. This next one is going to be Southshore. Southshore is actually located in southeast Aurora, so very different when you look at it on a map. Very different location from the first two, but I had to put this on the list because personally, this is an area that I've really only more recently started to know better and explore, and that's partially because I helped sell a home to one of my really close high school friends this past year, and her and her family had this beautiful home in Southshore, and being able to spend a lot of time over there really gave me a different perspective on what it's like to live in a more suburban area that is a little bit more on the southern side of Denver. There's obviously pros and cons to this as well, but one of the big benefits of this is its location. Now, when you look at it on a map, you can see that Southshore is very close to Aurora Reservoir. In fact, Southshore has walking access to the reservoir, which is phenomenal in the summertime. People go out there and paddleboard, fish, all kinds of activities. And you can also see on the map how it does have a pretty direct, easy access if you work in the Denver Tech Center. You work downtown Denver, this could be a little bit longer of a commute. It might be a bit of a headache. But if you're working in the Denver Tech Center or maybe somewhere else more on the southern side of Denver, this could be a great option. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a second, but a little teaser here. One of the other reasons so many people choose Southshore is because it's actually located in the Cherry Creek School District. I'll let you guys look at Cherry Creek School District on websites like niche.com that I frequently use, but it always gets rated as one of the best schools in the entire state. So a lot of people with families, they specifically choose areas in Denver that feed into the Cherry Creek school system, and a lot of Southshore does do that. So really great, especially if you are a family and that's important to you. Okay, so I shared with you guys on Google Maps where it's located. Now I want to share a little bit more about the home styles. So Southshore is a master plan community, so you're going to find a lot of homes that are newer built, I'd say in the late 90s, even going into the early 2000s, but there's obviously some really good things about that, and one of that being the roads are going to be wider. So unlike those Sloan Lake neighborhoods that sometimes you can't even get two cars to go across at the same time, what I love about Southshore and some of these newer communities, much wider roads where you just feel a lot more open. You're not ever worrying about your car getting hit when it's parked in front of your house, all that kind of stuff. Now, when it comes to home styles, another really interesting point to look at is when you are in areas in Denver that are a little bit more on the outskirts of town. So with Southshore as an example, it's been continuing to grow and get built further and further out. Since they have this, unlimited, not completely unlimited, but we'll use that word in this case, an unlimited amount of growth opportunity. What that does is it allows them to build newer homes and also on a little bit larger footprints, a little bit larger lot sizes, where you just don't feel nearly as contained or constrained with very high density type homes like some of these other areas that I've shared with you. Because you have these larger lot sizes in newer homes, you're also going to find a lot more homes that really fit what the buyers are looking for these days, which are those open floor plans, a lot of which have a main floor primary bedroom, and also a lot of homes that have really cool, trendy outdoor spaces that really allow you to appreciate and enjoy the best parts of living in Denver, which is the outdoors. Now, next, I want to share about the lifestyle and the amenities, and this is probably the best out of any area I'm going to share with you guys on this video. The amenities in Southshore are incredible. When I was selling that home I was talking about in Southshore last year, I really got a great feel for this. Literally across the street from the house, there was a private fishing pond with paddle boarding and fishing. Right across from there was a private trail going down to Aurora Reservoir. There's 2 massive clubhouses in the Southshore area. And in fact, just to kind of take this even a step further, one of the clubhouses had a bar, a tap room, where they had beer on tap. And as a resident of Southshore, you're allowed to go there once a day and have up to 2 free pints of beer. It's just another example of how unique and something I'd never even seen before in any other HOAs or master plan communities. So really, really cool area, lots of community feel, lots of activities, lots of great amenities. It just really is a phenomenal place if that stuff is important to you. Now, when it comes to why locals love it, a big part of this also goes back to the Cherry Creek School District. That would, I would say, probably be the #1 reason that locals are aware of Southshore and know about that and choose to be on that side of town. Also, your dollar goes a little bit further. For example, this home that I sold at the end of last year, we sold it for $855,000. And when you look at how beautiful this home was, massive. I mean, really, really cool open floor plan, big basement, 3 or 4 bedrooms upstairs, 3-car garage with an additional bonus space. I mean, it was a beautiful home, and we sold for $855,000. If you took that same budget of $850,000 and went to areas like Sloan Lake or Highlands, in some cases, you might only be buying a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow style home that was built over 100 years ago. So very, very different when it comes to the style of homes and where your dollar gets you, depending on what you're looking for. So I think that's the biggest thing that locals really understand, and hopefully you guys do a little bit more too after watching this video. Now, when it comes to 2026 buyer insights for Southshore, the only point that I really want to make on this one is that it continues to really benefit from the high demand of newer built homes, new construction. This tends to be something that gets more and more popular, especially in cities like Denver where affordability is really challenging. With new construction homes, typically you can get a little bit more favorable interest rates and have a little bit more control over some of this stuff, because oftentimes the builder has an in-house lender and does everything internally, where they can give a little bit bigger incentives and discounts sometimes as compared with, you know, just dealing with a one-on-one transaction with a single family home that a private party owns. So there's a little bit more control over some of that stuff. And I think just because of that high demand of newer built homes, Southshore is really benefiting from that and continuing to see more and more growth, which I think is a good thing. Now, last but not least, talking a little bit about reality check when it comes to Southshore. Southshore is in an area that's far enough away that you really don't have a ton of nightlife. So if you're somebody that really likes to go out on a regular basis and maybe enjoy, whether it be bars or dancing or just fine dining, nice restaurants, you're not going to find a ton of that in Southshore. You still have areas that are fairly close where if you wanted to drive or take an Uber, you could go to places like Cherry Creek or other areas that are close enough. But if you want all that stuff right in your backyard and really good walkability, Southshore might not be your best bet. And then the only other thing I'll share when it comes to reality check is if you are somebody that really likes character, if you really like those styles of homes where you have exposed brick and every home on the street looks dramatically different from one another, you're going to find that in areas like Sloan Lake, maybe even a little bit in northwestern Arvada. But in Southshore, because it is mostly master plan communities, you might find 5 or 6 different styles of homes, and it'll just be in a line. So you have 1 home, 2 homes, 3 homes, 4 homes, 5 homes, 6 homes, and then you'll see that first home again after that last one. So they have a little bit of control, but it's not going to have nearly as much character or uniqueness when you're looking at an area like Southshore in comparison to some of these older neighborhoods that don't have HOAs and as many covenants. All right, guys. Well, that was the first 3 of 6 best parts of Denver in 2026. Because I wanted to pack so much into these videos, it's actually going to be a 2-part series. So this is the end of part 1, but the way I want to end this one and next week is giving you a summary of the 3 that we've talked about today. Next week, I'm going to share with you the other remaining 3, and then we'll put all 6 of them on the screen and do a little deep dive on which ones are my personal favorites, which are some of the favorites of a lot of my clients that I've recently been taking out, looking at homes. It's really giving you guys a full understanding of everything that's out there right now in Colorado and in Denver. So the last but not least thing on this video is going to be that recap. So as you can see on the screen, we have the 3 that we shared today: West Highland and Sloan Lake, Northwestern Arvada, and Southshore. You can see that all three have very different features, amenities, different benefits, lots of different things between these. But when you're looking at this on the screen all at the same time, a couple highlights that I want to share with you. When it comes to Sloan Lake and West Highlands, if you're looking for walkability, this is still going to be one of the best you can find of anywhere in the entire state of Colorado. So if that's important to you, definitely put that one high on your list. If you're on a budget, however, and you really value the condition of your home, you want a home that maybe is newer, is a little bit more updated, you might be a little bit discouraged if you're only searching in areas like Stone Lake. So if that's the case, you might want to check out areas like Arvada. Now, Arvada, definitely the biggest pro, in my opinion, is its location as far as close to the mountains and a little bit better views. Since in some cases you're up on some bluffs like you are in the Layden Rock neighborhood, you have great views not only of the Western Slope, but also even of the Denver city skyline. So if that's important to you, definitely look into Arvada. And then last but not least, Southshore. If you're looking for some of the best amenities, also an area that your dollar goes a little bit further in, and you want to be in that Cherry Creek School District, Southshore might be your best bet. So I'll let you guys decide which one's your favorite. Before we close this video out though, one last thing, all that info on the screen below. If you guys want to reach out and just connect, we can do a 30-minute real estate strategy session on Zoom, or if you're not feeling up to that, just hop on the phone and we can just talk for a few minutes, because I guarantee there's a few ways I can provide value to you and really help you understand what it's like today in the Denver metro area, as well as what, as a 42-year local, what I expect to see over the next few years and how you could be positioned in the best way possible to make sure that you really can find that home of your dreams, hopefully in the near future. That is really speaking to you right now. One last thing, I'll put the link down below. Every other week, one of my best friends, who's also one of the top mortgage lenders in the entire country, his name's Ben Adams, and along with myself, we host these live, free Denver homebuyer webinars. It's really more of a masterclass. It's 60 minutes. You just hop on your computer and join us. We go over a ton of things that are really, really important, especially in this very unique, challenging market today. And we also share some of the biggest mistakes that other Denver buyers are making, how to avoid those, and just understanding the entire process from start to finish, from A to Z. If you guys want a free ticket to the next one, just go to denverwebinar.com. I'll save you guys a seat there. And with that, hope you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and I can't wait to see you guys next time on a brand new episode of Living in Denver. I'll see you then. Bye.